Hey, it's Jared. I'm here with Chris Robinson. We're reacting to some leadership conversations, little clips that we found on the internet. Can't wait for you to come with us as we pull out some lessons that are going to help you be more successful.
Very few people know this, but I don't wear a watch. And the reason why I don't wear a watch is now is the most important time. You'll be surprised, I'm not at all ambitious. I don't aspire to do more. I aspire to do better at what I'm currently doing. I'm not reaching for more. I wait for the world to come to me. People who know me also know NVIDIA doesn't have a long-term strategy. We have no long-term plan. Our definition of a long-term plan is, what are we doing today?
Yeah, I mean that's Jensen. I mean, what, that's great advice for a billionaire. Now, if you are broke, I do
Right,
not recommend this at all.
right.
Just outside my window, there's a bus stop, and if a guy's not wearing a watch, it's going to be a problem if he misses that bus. Being broke, I think you got to be on the other side of the spectrum, and what that looks like is it's a real simple process to get promoted on your job, and that is by being on time. One of the easiest ways to stand out on a job is number one, be on time. You want to really stand out, be on time with a smile. You want to really stand out, be on time with a smile and a good attitude, and then do your job. Then you're going to find yourself on the way. I think this is great for Jensen, but for the average person, if you are broke, hey, you better get that watch on. Be on time.
I have absolutely nothing to add to that. That's incredible. Listen, I mean, watches, you may not like watches, but watches certainly are important to our day to day. And I think that's a great point in terms of wherever you are in the journey. You may not be at a place where you've arrived and you've got people telling you where you need to be next. So you gotta take responsibility for your own calendar, for your own self. Personal responsibility is crucial in making it where you want to go. I love this. I love this in concept. Hey, the future, we gotta take care of today if we're gonna have a better future. Something that we always talk about is the only guarantee that tomorrow is going to get better is that you're growing today. So it's good to focus on today. It's good to make today count and make today matter, but you got to know, you got to have a little bit of a plan on where you're going as well.
And I just want to say one thing to the fans and everybody in Gator Nation. I'm sorry. Extremely sorry. We were hoping for an undefeated season. That was my goal. Something Florida's never done here. But I promise you one thing. A lot of good will come out of this. You have never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season, and you never see someone push the rest of the team as hard as I will push everybody the rest of the season, and you never see a team play harder than we will the rest of this season. God bless.
Listen, I've heard a lot of people give the man a hard time for this clip right here. One thing's for sure, Tim Tebow is real, genuine, authentic. It's not hard to follow somebody who is real, wearing their emotions on their sleeve, taking responsibility for stuff that didn't go right. People don't want perfect leaders, they want authentic leaders. And that's what we see right here. The emotion, I love the emotion, I love the passion. That this is somebody that's easy to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, if there's been any critique on that, that's crazy to me because this is a person that's passionate and that's a champion. What the way that he came off emotionally and the plan of action that he immediately put into place of going, hey, we're going to work harder at this. It's accountability, it's passion, it's grit, it's work. I mean, this is exactly what I'm looking for in a person. So any doubters or critics about this particular clip right here is crazy to me. When I think about my children that are playing sports, if they do good, guess what we have to do after the game? Go back to work. If they do bad, guess what they have to do after the game? Go back to work. And so this intensity of passion and pursuit of perfecting the craft, even after a loss, hey, I'm with it, man. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I can think about coming out of one of my very first businesses that failed. I remember sitting around the table with my partners at that time and going, hey, what are we going to do next? When one person went off and did something else, the other person went off to do something else. And then I said, hey, I said something crazy. I said, I'm going to go out and try this coach and speaking thing. They all kind of looked at me and said, well, I don't know about that, but we're going to go do this. But look, no matter what direction we go after a failure, if we know that we take that next step, it's going to lead to that next step. And so the fact that he had fight and passion and a plan after a failure, I love that more than anything. Because what else? What's the other option? You're just going to sit there and do nothing? Nothing's going to change until you change, and nothing's going to change until you have that passion and fire to take that next step.
Yeah, I love getting a window into young Tebow here. And, he hadn't been through much yet. Some people may say, like, well, he hasn't really tasted what it's like. Maybe this is the first time to actually lose. The truth is this is a man who has really poured his heart and soul into what he's doing and his craft. You got to respect that. I know for me, there's been times in business where I've just flat out failed when it comes to the presentation that I'm making, trying to win over a client, trying to whatever make the numbers work, and it just fell flat. It just didn't work. And what do you do on the other side of that? Do you take responsibility, or do you try to hide? For me, there's been times where I've tried to hide it. I've tried to sweep it under the rug. I've tried to skirt around it. I don't want people to see where I missed it. And that comes back to bite you in the end. The best thing to do is to own it from the start, own it quickly, make a plan to move forward, and people can follow that.
Yeah, the opposite side of the spectrum could have happened here, and it could have blamed and pointed everybody else. And what I'm telling my kids right now, and what I'm really trying to ingrain in their head is that do not be mad at the results that you get off the work you didn't do. One of the things that I have my kids do every day, especially my 12-year-old David that's playing baseball every single day. Every single day he's got to write in a journal what he did that day, and then after, if he doesn't do it, write anything in there, it's okay. But what I have him write in there, and what he refuses and what he hates to write, is if he does not do anything that day, I said, hey, I'm not mad at you, everything's okay, but what I want you to write in there is I did nothing. Now, this freaks this kid out. He will run out the house immediately, go hit a ball, go do something. But the sheer fact that he has to come face to face with the results and his work, it drives him crazy. And so when athletes, don't take responsibility and they point blame, what they're doing is that they're really closing the door to the future, because you have to take that responsibility and you have to open up the door to the work that's going to become. It's a team sport in most of these sports. And hey, things are going to bounce your way sometimes. Things are not going to bounce that way sometimes. But all we can do after that is the next best thing that we know how to do.
Yeah, I love that. Don't close the door on the future. That's such a great thought. And when you look at this in reality, here's Tebow, team captain, walking through a season where they end in failure, but then he turns it around the next year. The whole team, they go undefeated. They win the national championship. This is a testament to what it looks like when you take ownership, take responsibility, and lead with that authenticity and keep the door open to the future.
I got a question about Kobe for the first time last year that I had never been asked before, and it was a brilliant question. Person asked me, they said, when you met Kobe, was he in a hurry? He said, I would imagine a guy like Kobe would be in a hurry because he's got a lot of stuff to do. And I just thought, man, no, he was the opposite. He was so present. In fact, he was almost awkwardly present. Like, I was almost like, you ain't got nothing else to do tonight, Like he was just like, he was so dialed in. It actually convicted me, that question, because I think often on the other side of me, it can feel like I'm in a hurry because I've got another event to get to, I got a flight to catch. And I thought, even though I'm in a hurry, I don't want people to feel like I'm in a hurry.
Yeah, I love that. I love Ryan Leak. Great friend of ours and just a dynamic communicator. As I listen to Ryan right here, I'm convicted because I am always on to the next thing. I work a schedule, a clock like no other. And in fact, I get great satisfaction and joy of just being on time with precision to each and every single thing. But that also sometimes comes back to bite me with my family or my wife or the kids when I'm going, hey, what are we doing next? And then my wife is asking me, you've got nothing else to do. You're being right here. So I think, as leaders, as individuals, yes, we do have to make that time to be present when we're there. But on the other side of it too, is like, when it's time to be done, it's time to be done. So I've got this weird dichotomy with timing and how that rules my life. But I love this clip, love Ryan, and man, interesting to see the heaviness of the presence of Kobe Bryant when he had that time with him.
What I love the most about this is it just screams walk slowly through the crowd.
Mm.
Kobe Bryant, John Maxwell, Ryan Leak, whoever we're talking about, anybody, even if you don't have a big name, but you're on stage or you're in front of the room, trust me, everybody in that room is watching how you're going to interact before you get on that stage or after you get off that stage. They're watching to see how you're going to treat that moment and treat them. Walking slowly through the crowd. There may not be a better tip for a leader out there that's in front of the room than taking time and making people in the room feel like they're the most important person in that moment when you're in front of them. Make those people the agenda of that moment in time, and it's going to pay dividends, exponential impact in terms of how they follow you, how they see you, and how people are going to eventually share the impact that you had on their life.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
34, just turned 34.
What's the best piece of advice that you would tell your younger self? You're having a conversation with your 20-year-old self. What's the number one thing that you would tell your younger self?
So you have to understand that who you are today is a set of programs. Like your brain is a computer system, and who you are is just what your parents taught you, what your institutions taught you. If you were in religious structures or sports or anything, that's who you are. It's a program in your brain. So if you don't like your situation, you feel like you're limited, you feel like everybody else is like crushing it and you're not, it's just because your program has a virus and you have to rewire your mind. So meditation, mental rehearsal. I worked with Sports Illustrated for the last couple of years, and nobody talks about this, but like Steph Curry meditates before a game. He visualizes. Michael Jordan said it was just as important to spend time in the mind gym as it was the mental gym. Kobe believed every shot he took, it was going to go into the net. So everything's a mind game. Like that's all it is. And once you program yourself to win, you can only win. It's the only option.
I like how she clarified that she just turned 34. She's like, don't call me old right here. I just turned 34. Chris, you got some things on this, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's not wrong when it comes to visualization. One of the things that, I love about this particular clip is that, you become what you see. And I really believe that you are a figment of your imagination. Everything that you have today is a figment of your imagination in which you were crystal clear on. The evidence of that is the watch on your wrist, the shirt that you're wearing. At some point in time, you saw that shirt, Jared, and you said, hey, you know what? That's the one I want. Now, in the moment, you might not have had the time, you might not have had the money, but it sat there on your mind. And because you held on to that image of what it is that you wanted, eventually you got back to the store. You got that jacket because you saw yourself wearing it, to work one day. You saw yourself wearing it on a date with your wife. But what you see, and you're going to have to understand, is that you always go in the direction of your dominant thoughts. And so whatever it is that you're thinking on, whatever it is that you're visualizing, what you have today is only an image that you've been holding on to for some time in your life.
I love this language too about programming. It puts us in the driver's seat. It takes us out of this victim mentality of stuff's happening to me. No, it's not about what happens to me. It's about what I do with the circumstances that I've been dealt. Something's happening in me, and I have responsibility to reprogram those thoughts or those feelings or what the circumstance might be around me. I have a responsibility inside of me to be able to perform in light of that. And you're exactly right. How do we walk through life not as a victim, but as someone who understands our own responsibility inside of our own brain? Psychologically, we can reprogram these synapses. We can actually create new neural pathways as we go through life, but it takes the daily discipline over and over and over consistently. We hear it said all the time, consistency compounds. Why don't you let consistency compound in your brain for a little while and reprogram some of those things that have gotten you into a victim mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens too, though, is that sometimes you could have the right programming and yet go into new environments and still not feel comfortable. And what happens is we feel like we don't belong, or we feel like we don't belong a part of that environment, and we get uncomfortable, and then we go back to what we know. I can think about one example in particular where I had went to this restaurant. It was a very nice restaurant inside of this area that was really well to do. And I go to nice restaurants all the time, but I have no idea why I went to this restaurant and I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. So what I did was the exact opposite of that. Immediately after finishing dinner, I booked a reservation to go right back to that same restaurant again the next weekend. Now I told my friend about this discomfort, and he was like, "Well, why in the world did you book to go right back there again?" I said, "Because I want to make myself familiar with the environments that I want, because anytime that we say that we want something, if we're not ready for it or comfortable or feel like we deserve it, we
Wow.
let it get away." And so I immediately put myself back in that environment to say, okay, no, this is who I am. This is where I belong. Hey, this is who I want to be amongst. And I put myself back in the room. So any of the places that you feel uncomfortable, you have to force through that discomfort in order to have what it is you truly want.